Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm Sarah Stewart, the minister here. It is wonderful to have all of you with us this morning. I'm leading worship this morning with our Director of Music, Allegra Martin, Director of Faith Development, Samantha Namath, Assistant Director of Faith Development, Abigail Hannaford-Riccardi, and Avilo Buxton, our broadcast tech. We are pleased to have two guest musicians this morning along with our wonderful choir. Our young artist in residence, William Ryan, who just played our Prelude and will play our Postlude, and our own member, Sten Gustafson. I know everybody loves to show their appreciation to our musicians, so please do that enthusiastically at the end of the service. Here at First Unitarian Church, we strive in loving fellowship to honor the sacred, connect with each other, and serve justice. We are a welcoming congregation. Whatever your age, race, class, or nationality, you are welcome here. Single people and families of all kinds are welcome here. LGBTQ folks are welcome here. Those of all physical and mental abilities are welcome here. The doors of this church are open to all, and we are delighted you are with us today. For those of you who are joining us online, you can like this video to help others find us and subscribe to our channel to find more content. The best way to stay in touch with everything we do as a church is to get our e-newsletter. You can go to firstunitarian.com and click subscribe to our newsletter at the bottom of any page. If you're in the Worcester area, I invite you to join us at 10:30 every Sunday morning for worship and fellowship. Everyone is welcome to a social hour in the church parlor after the service through these doors at the front of the church. This door on my left is the accessible entrance. And if you are a newcomer, please stop by the welcome table on this side of the parlor. We have a gift bag for you. There's a volunteer there who can answer questions, and you can also sign up for the newsletter there. I have a few additional announcements this morning. There are announcements in your order of service. There will be, Sunday after Thanksgiving, the UU Sisterhood is opening a new exhibit in our Merit Gallery upstairs in the chapel, so please come to that. And today is the second to last Sunday to buy 50/50 raffle tickets during the social hour. The drawing is next Sunday. I also want to let you know that I lead a monthly book group here. It is meeting this coming Wednesday at 6:30 in the Bancroft room, the church parlor, and we are discussing The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. This has been a very popular book, so even if you read it a while ago and would like to come and join in on the discussion, you are welcome. I invite you to join us at 6:30 this Wednesday. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. As we enter into this sacred space, we give thanks for the gift of memory. We remember those we have loved and lost. We remember old friendships, grateful for the wisdom and connection we once knew. As the leaves fall from the trees, our memories drift around us, connecting us to one another and to our ancestors. We give thanks for the spiritual practices of memory, for focused thought, for prayer, for the flickering flame of a yahrzeit candle. We give thanks for the items of our loved ones which remind us of them, our mother's kitchen tools, which we use to make her cookies, our sister's ring on our finger. We give thanks for the joy our departed loved ones still bring us. We give thanks for stories, recipes, photos, and laughter passed from one generation to the next. May these memories be a blessing. May they open our hearts this morning to receive the gifts of the Spirit. May we live our lives so that when we die, we are a source of love and blessed memory to those who remain. Amen.
Sophia is lighting our chalice this morning.
in the spirit of love.
Rise in body or spirit to renew the covenant of our church with the words in your order of service and appearing on your screen. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all.
Good morning. If you happen to be in the Bancroft room this morning, I'm sure you heard some beautiful music. That will be our jam band. They will be performing next week during the service. Thank you to Sten and Amanda for leading the troupe. They sounded amazing this morning, so I'm very excited. If jamming is not your thing and you want to do something fun after service as well, we have our Dungeons and Dragons group meeting today from 1 to 4 p.m. And if you've never played D&D, totally fine. The more the merrier, and they'll teach you everything you need to know. It's all ages, from youth to adults to you don't want to share your age, either one is totally fine. Also, following the service today, we have our Why Are You Two youth group. That is our high school youth group. We are meeting and playing a great, fun debate team. If you're in high school and want to join, just come hang out. It's great. And then I know it's not Thanksgiving, but if you haven't signed your child up to find a part in the pageant for Christmas, it's on the 10th of December. And starting on the 26th of November, we're going to start rehearsing during the service, thanks to Chris Johnson and Madeline Browning. So if you want to be in the pageant, sign up online, come see me if it's not technicalities aren't working, and we'll figure out a spot for you if you're a youth or your child or you want to help costume. So let me know. Today's story is The Wave by Tyler Carlton. The last time it happened, I was building a fort. Sometimes I lose my joy and I don't know why, and the wave takes me away. I don't see it coming. I never do, and here I go again. It makes me mad and sad all at the same time, and I want to run away, but you can't outrun a wave. One time, the wave washed me into the kitchen cupboard. No one even noticed. Didn't they see the wave take me away? Sometimes I think they did see it, because after a while, someone handed me a graham cracker. All I can do is take care of myself until it passes. I guard my head and my heart, and I watch out for things that can hurt me. One time, I didn't guard my heart. I let it harden, and I said some mean things. I didn't care. It felt good to be mad, but I hurt my friend. Sometimes I feel all alone. I miss my joy. But I've learned that the water will eventually calm, and the gentle current will begin to carry me back to the shore. When I get to the surface, I know I can ask for help. Remember that. And even though the wave still has me, I can get to my feet. The wave pulls the sand out from under me and tries to hold me, but I keep moving. Remember that. Keep moving. Have a soft heart. Look for the shore. Keep moving, and you'll make it through.
It's called Secret for the Man. It's by a British singer-songwriter named Joey. And in British
I'd like to take this moment to invite all our children and youth down to our children's chapel today, that the children will be doing everything they planned last week, this week, and it will be great. All are welcome. Thank you.
#721 in your gray hymnals, and also appearing on your screen. They are with us still. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us. It is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. I invite you to name aloud those you're holding in your memory and those who lend strength to your lives. We hold these names and lives and memories in our hearts and in our prayers today. Please continue your own thoughts and prayers in silence. In this time of prayer and meditation, we share the joys and sorrows of our church with one another. Ken Mandiel lights a candle in celebration of Bill Ruggiero for receiving an award for his radio broadcast. Bill won the 2023 Tenacity Award from the Audio Journal. And Bob Gordon lights a candle for Ellen Thompson, asking that we hold Ellen in our hearts, thoughts, or prayers this Tuesday, November 14th, when she will be having surgery for a total knee replacement. Visualize her wrapped in a warm, cozy, indigo blue blanket of healing energy. We hold these joys in our hearts, these prayers for healing. We know there are joys and sorrows which go unspoken among us. And so we reach out to one another in compassion as we say together the prayer of Jesus. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our ministries at First Unitarian Church continue to thrive because of your support. In the past few weeks, the Sunday Ponderings group met this morning as part of our Adult Faith Development Program. They meet monthly for spiritual discussion on the second Sunday before church. Volunteers from the Buildings and Grounds Committee rebuilt the back stairs outside our building connecting the upper parking lot to the back of the church. And our YRU2 high school youth group is exploring a closer connection with the youth group at our sister church, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. All these are made possible by your gifts. The ushers will receive this morning's offering, or you may scan the QR code in the order of service. If you're online, you can text the number on your screen or go to firstunitarian.com and click Give Online at the top of any page. I invite your generous contributions for the good work of First Unitarian Church.
Hey, look how far we've come. Do we know who we are? Stranded on a mountaintop, trying to catch a falling star. Here's to those we left behind us. Here's to what we left behind. May the road that lies before us lead to a place where love abides. I went walking with my darling through the early morning frost. Saw 3 crosses by the roadside where 3 young souls were lost. She said they're flying with the angels now. Jesus took them for a ride. High above the Rio Grande, they found a place where love abides. You may cross your barren desert. You might walk your path alone. But a sudden wind may find you and shake your spirit to the bone. Seeking shelter for a weary heart, somewhere to rest, some place to hide. Then somewhere down that troubled road, you find a place where love abides. people came across the water with their fearful, untamed hearts, standing on a foreign shoreline, praying for a brand new start, hand in hand across the mountains and the raging rivers wide, till they reached the distant ocean or found a place where love abides. You may cross your barren desert, you might walk your path alone, but a sudden wind may find you and shake your spirit to the bone, seeking shelter for a weary heart, somewhere to rest, some place to hide. Then somewhere down that troubled road, you find a place where love abides. Hey, look how far we've come.
Our first reading is the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Evening Come by Jane Kenyon. Let the light of late afternoon shine through chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come, as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let the evening come. I realize that I skipped over our Stewardship Testimonial by Jane Abbott, entirely my fault, so I would like to invite you, Jane, to come forward now.
All right, thank you, Sarah. I practiced this. Seth asked me if I would speak a week or so ago, and I told him I've had this project in my life recently to get better at saying no, because I'm inclined to say yes to things and then I get overloaded and, So he asked me if I would speak this morning, and I remembered that project, and I said, sure, I'll speak this morning, because it's really a delight to do so. I grew up in a family that wasn't particularly religious or churchy. I think it's because both my grandfathers were ministers. And my dad went to the church where he could make the most money conducting the choir, and my mom went to the church where she could dress up and look spiffy and wear hats. And so by the time I left, Dad lived in Madison, Wisconsin, where there is a beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright Unitarian church. If you ever have a chance to visit it, do. It's just lovely. She was a docent there. It's just a beautiful place to be. And I was living in New York at the time, so I would go to the Unitarian church in New York sometimes, and I loved it. I loved the flexibility, and I loved the community, and I loved the humor, and I loved the good works that people did. And then about 20 years ago, I moved up to the Boston area. We lived in Arlington, and I looked for a church to go to. But because my dad was a choir conductor, I couldn't be comfortable in a church where there wasn't at least a decent choir, so I didn't really find a place that fit. But I met my now ex-husband, and we adopted our daughter, and we had our life, and that was fine. We grew our daughter up without going to church, for which she is now grateful. She said, "Mom, it's really creepy." So she loves coming here too when she can, of course. And then some years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, circumstances required us to move out of Arlington, and we ended up in Hubbardston. And I thought, well, if we all are having a beer sometime, I'll tell you the story of how I picked Hubbardston. It was a lovely story, but it was not the wisest move I've ever made. So here I am in Hubbardston, and I had done enough research to know that in 2016, about half the population voted for Trump, but the other half voted for Bernie. So I figured, okay, I will find my people here somewhere. There have to be some of my people here somewhere. But life went along, and my daughter had some struggles, and I was commuting in to teach in Cambridge a couple of days a week, and so I made a couple of friends, and they both moved away. And I would visit Arlington now and then, and I had my colleagues at school that I was friends with, but there I was out in this little town of Hubbardston. And I don't know, I was thinking about talking to you, I was thinking about trying to remember what prompted me last Christmas to say to Cody, let's go into the Unitarian church in Worcester for Christmas Eve and just see what it's like. I had not been inside a church in many years at that point. So we came. on Christmas Eve, and we walked in those back doors, and Allegra's beautiful choir was singing up in the loft. And I burst into tears and said, I want to belong here. And so here we are. I'm so grateful and so privileged to be part of this place where it's warm and it's welcoming, and you care about each other and you care about others, and there are ways to participate, and there's this community that's loving and caring. And so then Seth called and said, you want to have your stewardship conversation? And I said, sure, having no idea what that meant. And we had this great conversation about his life and my life and our kids and our families and what we love about coming here. It was really a special conversation. And then he pulled out my pledge card, and I had done my original pledge, just sort of, dart at a dartboard, pick a good round number, and that was fine. And the only thing I didn't like about it is that every month it gets pulled electronically out of my bank account, so I didn't have that feeling of, now I'm giving to this place, and that experience of giving that's so wonderful. But that was okay, and then he showed me the number where it was hoped that I could up my pledge to this year, and I had this fleeting memory of that project to learn how to say no. And I said, sure, I could do that. And, it may dip into my coffee money from time to time, but who needs that much coffee? So I'm donating, and I can't imagine a better place, a better reason, a better purpose for giving some money that I can to get to come here and be with you and know you and sing with the choir when I can and contribute what I can and listen to Sarah's gorgeous sermons every Sunday. I can't imagine a better use for some extra money that I have. And so I encourage you to give what feels right to you. And thank you for being here, and thank you for listening. Where's the off button?
Drive through Worcester, and you'll catch glimpses of the city's history. Look down Walnut Street toward Mechanics Hall. You can almost imagine the city in 1857 when the venue opened. Turn right to drive south on Main Street, and you can see 1970s Worcester in all its glory. You'll immediately see why Worcester played 1970s Camden, New Jersey in the film American Hustle. Near Clark, you can admire the late Victorian homes that are now part of the university. Or on a more somber note, the Plumley Village, name of a housing development, is now all that remains of a thriving African-American neighborhood raised for the I-290 construction. Today, new apartment buildings, hotels, parking garages, and biotech facilities are sprouting up all over the city. These new buildings layer themselves on top of the old, layers going all the way back to European settlement in the 18th century and the Indian towns that were already here, still remembered in the language and place names of the city. There's a book of Worcester places that brings some of these memories to life. It's called Worcester Through Time. It's a little book of historical photographs. The library has several copies. On the top of every page, there's a photo or an etching of historic Worcester. Here, the Tatnick School. There, the Park Avenue Methodist Church. On one page, the Northbridge Furniture Store. On that one, the Girls' Trade School. And then, on the bottom of every page is a color photo showing what that same spot looked like in 2013 when the book was published. The Tatnick School is gone. It's now a firehouse. The Methodist Church, sadly, has given way to a Taco Bell. Where the Northbridge Furniture Store once stood is now George's Coney Island. And the Girls' Trade School used to be right here, where our parking lot is today. We can imagine what that time-lapse film reel of Worcester would look like. Buildings falling and rising, fencing going up and coming down, people milling and driving in wagons, cars. Even since 2013, when the book was published, the landscape has changed. What was once the Washburn and Moen building in 2013 was overgrown with weeds and hidden behind a chain link fence, and now it's an office block and home to the Fix restaurant. Some of Worcester's memories are still present in its buildings. One such place in Worcester is Bancroft Tower at the top of Bancroft Hill, the slope rising up behind WPI's campus and the American Antiquarian Society. Bancroft Tower is a beautiful folly, built by Stephen Salisbury III in memory of George Bancroft, his dear friend. It is as though someone started to build a defensive tower for Worcester and stopped after constructing one gate and one tower. It has a room with a fireplace, but the windows are open to the air. It has stairs to the upper level. Downspouts direct water away from the mortar. Crenellations would allow archers to see their enemy, if there were any. Sundials suggest timekeeping, but they point to Worcester's hills instead of the hours of the day. Once upon a time, it was open all the time to visitors, but now I believe the Parks Department opens it one weekend a year, so you can look for that one opportunity. Like all follies, it is useless as a building. Like some, it is wonderful. But as a form of grieving, it has its own perfect logic and utility. George Bancroft was the middle child of our first minister, Aaron Bancroft, by far more famous than his father. He was the first Secretary of the Navy, and he wrote the first academic history of the United States. Stephen Salisbury III was a Worcester leader, served in the state senate, an attorney. Both men were members of this parish. Yet in the stories of their lives, I can't find anything about the tower. There's a standard 4-volume history of Worcester, The History of Worcester and Its People by Charles Nutt, but I believe the tower was built in 1900 and Nutt published in 1919, and he may not have wanted to go back to writing that was done and to put it in. So all we have is the inscription on a stone at the site itself and a short article on the city's website. According to the city, Salisbury intended the tower and its park to be a recreational oasis. Its spiral staircases, fireplace chambers, stone benches, and parapets were frequently the scene of picnics and social outings. So many thanks to Stephen Salisbury for giving that land, which became Bancroft Hill and Institute Park, and for building a recreational tower, even if it's now mostly closed, and for all his charitable giving to the city. But I can't help but wonder if there's more to that story. George Bancroft was Stephen's lifelong friend. Stephen died only 5 years after George did. Imagine the magnitude of grief that would lead a man to build a castle for his dead friend. A folly is something that looks like a building but is really something else. It's a piece of art or a memorial, a garden structure or a gate. As a building, it's useless. A tower connected to no castle. A folly built in memory is a building whose existence is the remembrance of loss. It's not a structure for keeping warm or a battlement to house an army. Bancroft Tower looks like a piece of a castle, but really it is grief and memory made visible. George Bancroft died. Stephen Salisbury is also long dead, but the testament to their friendship remains. We have known grief like this. I have, you have. Grief that makes you want to build a castle so that everyone can see it. What we do doesn't always make sense when we're grieving. Someone we loved like our own bones dies, and suddenly all our actions are bent to that truth and nothing else. Actions that look useless but make our grief real. We eat an entire pie in the night until we make ourselves sick. We make a poem. We paint the house pink. We stop sleeping. Our tears become our food, night and day. We build a useless tower in the woods. We work ourselves ragged, we pick fights, we wear our misery like a badge. And it is only later that we can look back and say, yes, it was all grief. It was all loss. What else could I do? Sometimes in our grief, we are compelled to make, to build, to write, to paint, to do something with our bodies and our time to make our sorrow visible. We too need to build a folly. The poet Donald Hall wrote about the power of making after his wife, the poet Jane Kenyon, died young of cancer. Hall wrote an essay about this time and this process. He reminds the reader that in ancient Greece, the poet was a maker. The word for writing poetry and for making are the same. He wrote about his delight in her voice, about the ways he moved his own poetry away from hers when they were married, and how after his death he returned to her through his poems, finding a shared voice, reaching out to her in what he calls a one-way correspondence. He writes, "In the months and years after her death, Jane's voice and mine rose as one, spiraling together the images and diphthongs of the dead who were once the living, our necropoetics of grief and love in the singular absence of flesh." He had survived his own bout of cancer, and she had written about death too. Like all of us, she knew that she was alive but would someday be dead. But we don't know what it's like to fall off the cliff of grief until it happens to us. This week I read Donald Hall's book of poems written during and after Jane's death. I wept as I read them. Here's one. The Gallery by Donald Hall. Back home from the grave, behind my desk I made a gallery of Jane's. At 24, with long, straight hair sitting beside me in my Pittsburgh pirate suit. Standing recessive in shadow, wearing her nearsighted glasses. Kearsarge behind us. Stretched out glamorous in her bathing suit at Key West. Foxy and beautiful at 45, embracing me last year. Front page of the Sunday Concord Monitor, in color, with the headline, "Poet Jane Kenyon Dies at Her Home in Wilmot." God bless Donald Hall, who made this poem out of his grief. In this poem, in the whole book, Jane Kenyon is alive again. In his eyes, the version of Jane whom Donald loved, whom he saw, who he gives to us. That drive to make, to recreate, to bring our loved one back to life. I've done this. When a dear friend of mine died much too young, almost 10 years ago now, I went to the attic and pulled out everything I had of her so I could see it all together. Her bat mitzvah invitation, a literary magazine we worked on together, our graduation from high school, her wedding, mine, a card she wrote me when we were girls, covered in rainbow stickers. Over the course of the last decade, I have written again and again of her death, of her memory, of her life, often for no other reader than myself. The making is the memory. We need the poetics of grief to grieve at all. In our liberal religious tradition, there's a theology that says that humans co-create the world with the divine. In process theology, God is in the process of becoming and creating the world along with living creatures, and there's a God in us, and we show forth that God when we make something. God is discovered and emerges. Human action creates and transcends. I have preached from this pulpit on the power of co-creating the world, of bringing beauty, justice, kindness, and love into being through our lives. God works through us. We are partners with the divine. The Torah tells us that God created the world and each day pronounced God's creations good. And when we create something of beauty, we too say, "This is good. Maybe a little God spirit is with me today." Yet the co-creation of the world is also co-creation of loss, grief, and sorrow. We do not make what only feels good. This is a truth our faith helps us remember. This religious community helps us hold grief, loss, and memory alongside joy, presence, and thought as part of the wholeness of human life. I've probably led 100 memorial services, funerals, and graveside ceremonies in my years as a minister. And every time I see the power and faithful presence of creating time for sorrow and grief. There's often laughter too, but underneath the laughter, loss, and ultimately gratitude that a community existed to hold the memory and longing of those left behind. A memorial service can look like a folly from the outside. It can seem to some to be a waste of resources, especially to people who are in the process of dying, and then they say, I don't want any fuss. Don't do anything for me when I die. But like a folly, a memorial service isn't really about the person who died. It's a gift. As much as joy, grief made visible weaves us into the web of human community that spans time and reaches across unbearable distance. Grief holds our memories and our love. It opens our hearts so that we can be present to the grieving of others, which is the only thing that brings us any comfort. It makes us grateful for the love we have known and the privilege of holding those beloved lives, even if they ended before we were ready. Each of you this morning has held a beloved face and name in your heart and mind, at least one, perhaps a host of lives still alive in you. Your love for them is a gift. What you make in your grief honors their memory. May their memories be a blessing to you and to the world. I love you all. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 1008 in your teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Please rise and bow to your spirits. Go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the afflicted. Honor everyone. Love and serve the holy, rejoicing in the power of the Spirit forever. Amen. Please be seated.